Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Blue is the New White podcast. Today's guest is one of the most candid that we've had on the show. He's an open book with an incredible journey through his specific trade. Chris Gutkes from Island Elevator joins us to talk all about the elevator repair industry. We touch on everything from his journey as a fourth-generation elevator mechanic to the benefits and opportunities that exist in that trade, all the way to what entrepreneurship looks like in his corner of the industry. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and on our website at blueisthenewwhite.com to receive all the latest updates. As always, this show is not monetized and we don't run ads. We rely strictly on word of mouth from our listeners to further the mission. So if you enjoy this episode, please do me a favor, take a second to rate it, review it, and share it. The future generations of tradespeople depend on it. They depend on you. So thank you again and enjoy this episode of the Blue is the New White podcast with Chris Gutkes. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Blue is the New White podcast. Man, I am excited about our guest today. Mr. Chris Gutkes joins us from Island Elevator. Man, if you haven't seen Chris's other podcasts, you go check them out. He was on Inside the Trades not long ago with Derek. He was on Skill Stadium with Keith. A lot of my counterparts have already interviewed Chris, so I'm a little behind the eight ball on this one, but I am excited I finally get my opportunity. Chris, welcome to the Blue is the New White podcast, my friend.
Thank you very much, Josh. Appreciate you having me.
All right, so let's jump right.
And hello to the Blue is the New White fans.
That's right. They're a big crowd. All right, watch out. Lots of them are from New York too, bud. Right in your neighborhood.
I love it.
So listen, man. For those who haven't seen you on the other podcasts, you want to just give us a lowdown, who you are, where you come from, kind of how you got to where you are?
Sure. My story is pretty typical when it comes to tradesmen. I am fourth generation elevator. My great grandfather was the first one in. My grandfather was president of the local one union for 20 years. My father, when my grandfather was in, he got all of his sons-in-laws and sons in, so all of my uncles were in it. Then I went to, then my father was in for a little while out in the field. He started his first elevator company in 1989. Then I came up through high school. The one thing that I didn't want to be in the whole wide world was an elevator man. I left high school, did I had a cup of coffee at a local community college. I thought I was going to do something that I really wasn't going to do. And then I joined the Army because the military is kind of big in my family also. 4 years, peacetime military, got out in 2001 before 9/11. So between the time that I joined the Army and got back, my father had built up an elevator company that got into a couple of bad contracts. The company went under. He reorganized. At the time, he was regional. Then he split with his partner. His partner took all of the accounts in the 5 boroughs in Jersey. He took everything on out on Long Island. Partnered back up with his cousin, who had a few accounts and his own small elevator company, and they started the first iteration of Island Elevator in 1999. I got out and joined a large elevator company. It's a multinational called Thyssen. That's where I cut my teeth as an apprentice, as a union apprentice. Went through the union trade school 4 years, and in 2005, after my father had broken with his then partner, he hired me on. And it was me and him in a windowless office in Wyandanch, New York. And if you've ever been to Wyandanch, you know that you don't really want to go to Wyandanch. We built up the company from there,
as they say, right?
Yeah, well, literally there was no windows, because if you had windows, they would break it. The door was a steel door that had to get bolted, and every night. So it was it was a place to start. That's all that really matters. You're servicing elevators as an elevator service company. You're servicing them. We were servicing them. Our service area is just Long Island only. So we stop at the Queens-Nassau border. We go all the way out east, and you don't necessarily do your office location, as long as it's mildly centralized in your service area, it doesn't really matter. So we were there. Then we bounced a couple of times. At one point, we broke from the union, so now we're a non-union company. And in 2000, and so at that point, I was continuing to build up my skill set as being a highly skilled elevator technician, trying to fix all of the elevators that went down and build up our customer base. In 2000, then we started to hire people, which was nice because then I didn't have to do anything. Not that I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to do everything. And then we went ahead and so we're building up our employee base. We're building up our customer base, and I'm kind of training people up. And then in 2016, my father came back from Florida and he passed away suddenly. So it was basically he was here, and I brought him to the hospital, and 3 hours later he was gone. So now I am president of the company. I'm shotgun president. And the problem is that I don't have any experience at all on the business side of the operations. I don't know how to read a P&L. I don't know how to write a process. I don't know where the money is coming from or where the money is going. It was a very, very difficult time. The way that I try to equate it to people is that imagine if you were working in a big ship and you're out at sea and you're in the engineering, you're all the way down in the hull, and then somebody comes down, taps you on the shoulder and said, oh, by the way, you're going to have to be the captain now. So I've never been it. I go up there and now I'm at the helm. And by the way, I find out that we're taking on water. So what do we got to do? I got to go back to school. I got to restart my learning process from the ground up in order to be able to build on the skill set that I did not have, trained for, or possess prior to taking over this position. And I got to do it all while keeping our 10 employees, 11 employees at the time, confident that the company is going to be moving in the right direction. So it got a little messy, then it got messier. Then things started to level out for a little bit. I went back, Goldman Sachs, 10,000 Small Businesses, which is like a shotgun business program that'll teach you all of the real basics in a modular fashion. I did that in 2019. That was the best thing that was for me as far as being able to build up my entrepreneurial mindset, to understand how a business is supposed to be operated from sales and marketing all the way down to closing, operations and execution and billing and collections, all of those things that I had no experience in before. And then in 2019, we went through, we're starting to level off the company. We're feeling good. The way that I explained it to people is that we got to stop playing defense and start playing offense. I've got my plans. We hire our first salesman, January 2020, March 2020, boom, we're back into defense again. So it's been a wild ride to say the least, but I am feeling more and more confident each day as we continue to build our team. We're up to 34 employees now, and we have a more solid direction where we're going, and more importantly is how we're going to get there, which is something that I never knew before. So that's kind of my story in a nutshell.
Whoa, dude.
There's a lot there, I know. And I didn't even give you all the details because, come on, it's social media. People get bored by details.
Yeah. No. I'm gonna pick some stuff apart here. I got some questions for you, but that's interesting. That is interesting. So I wanna go back. Let's try to do this in succession, right? So I don't ask the same thing twice. So in school, why didn't you want to be an elevator mechanic?
In school, in high school?
Yeah. In
school,
said, right?
I didn't want to be an elevator mechanic because everybody I knew and cared about was an elevator mechanic. And I always saw myself as being maybe special. Maybe I was a little bit more cerebral. Maybe I had more potential. And there was an area of me that wanted to explore entertainment in a sense and to try to do something completely different. And I wanted to stand alone, I guess, in a sense, which is, it's so typical. And I'm sure that you probably suffer from a lot of similar things because you and your dad were in the company, is that you just want to prove your dad wrong. I just want to show you that I don't need to do it the way that you did it. I can do it my way. And then you'll give me a big hug and a kiss and you'll say, that's it. I'm proud of you, son. So I've got daddy issues, just to kind of put it really plainly. Okay. So I did not want to go into the elevator industry, but when I came back from the Army, I needed a job like right away. So my father, I asked him, I said, listen, can you put me to work? I still had all of my shit in the truck. And the next day I went and started to work as an apprentice for him before I was able to go over to the union. And I was addicted immediately, right away. It hit all of the things that really kind of stimulated me in a fashion that I really didn't kind of expect. I thought of myself as cerebral. I thought of myself as a problem solver. I was able to get these things like multiplied times 10 just by having that opportunity to engage with the equipment, because an elevator is such a dynamic electromechanical device that to be able to go in there and understand all of the nuances, it will take you forever to figure it out. My grandfather told me, he said, when you're getting into this business, it's going to be learning every single day, because even if you get to the point where you know everything about this business, you'll be too old to do it anymore. And that's just how it's been. Every day is another learning situation. There's new equipment that's coming in all the time. It's constantly challenging you. So you could never be the best ever that's ever existed, because even as you focus on one area of the industry, there's another area that's developing that you have no idea what's going on. So all of that challenge, I'm also a chess player. So, and there's this challenge where you know that even if I play every day for the rest of my life and study from the best coaches in the world, I'll never be the best chess player. But that challenge, that idea of trying to push myself to be the best that I can possibly be by trying to achieve something that is, in a sense, almost impossible, is where I kind of fall in love with the business, with the industry, with some of the other things that I like. I heard this football player, I forgot what his name was. He says, everybody wants to play on Sunday, but nobody wants to work out on Monday. It was a guy from the Baltimore Ravens. And he said, you got to love the process. You got to love the process. Well, that's what's really kind of drawn me into the elevator industry, is because I love the process. I love the learning process. I love the fact that there's constantly going to be more challenges in front of me, that I'm never going to be able to reach that precipice that I want to get to. It's not what I thought it was when I was in high school, when I was talking to my uncles, and all of my aunts knew what my uncles were doing. It wasn't just moving stuff from point A to point B and bolting things together. There was so many nuances built into the actual execution of either building an elevator, executing repair, modernization, service, that I wildly underestimated it. And it's just been amazingly fulfilling for me. It's the one part of the industry that I miss the most. Like, if I could give it all up and just do one thing, it would be to go out there and put my hands back on the equipment.
I hear you, my friend. I'm right there with you. You know, sometimes I miss those days in the field for that exact reason, right? It's the satisfaction that you get by breathing life into something that didn't have it before. I mean, there's a laundry list of reasons. I am curious though, when you got back from the Army, you needed a job, right? Thank you for your service, by the way.
Oh yeah, I was peacetime military though. You know
what? Still though,
I didn't spend any time in the desert. The only time that I fired my weapon was on the practice range. So nobody's ever fired a bullet at me. I know that anybody that can go there, experience that, come back here, and even attempt to try to build a real life in this fake, this kind of manufactured society that we built here. It's so freaking safe.
Yeah.
And you don't really truly appreciate that until you go somewhere where the things that we take for granted, our entitlements to go into bed at night and not having to worry about a missile coming through our window, it's a huge thing. And I feel a little bit humbled and almost embarrassed when people thank me for my service, because I know that there are so many tens of thousands of men and women that really did put it all out on the line. And I don't want to be accidentally associated with me signing a contract and their true and real sacrifice.
I understand that. I respect that, and I appreciate you, clarifying that, but all the same, I mean, you would have gone if they asked you, right?
Yes.
So, and
I would have shit my pants.
Okay, fair enough, my friend. All right, listen, so this question, after you got back from the Army, right? You needed a job. You went to your dad. You started working as an elevator mechanic, which is something you were adamant about not wanting to do. You found fulfillment in it, but how long did that take? How long did it take from you joining the company with your arms crossed like this, saying, I just need a job, to, holy shit, this is real and I actually enjoy it?
It took like one day.
Oh, really?
As soon as I stood in front of that elevator controller and I saw all of the lights and all of the motion that was going on there. And then over my shoulder, I'm watching the elevator kind of start moving up and down the shaft. And this is what was really addictive about it, is the fact that the mechanic who's sitting next to me, because I joined as an apprentice, the mechanic who's sitting next to me is looking at this thing like it's like the Rosetta Stone. He understands exactly what is going on. He knows where the elevator is, how it's behaving, whether the doors are open or closed, whether or not this is a normal operation. And I'm just in awe of how natural it was. It was like a second language. It's like, why I'm so envious of people that could speak multiple languages. So to watch somebody comfortably speak in a different language to somebody else who's native to that, that's what it kind of felt like. It was almost like I was on the outside looking in, and I was just fortunate to be part of this kind of experience. And at that point, I was like, no, I need to know how to do this. I can't not know.
Wow, that's interesting. So from that point forward, you basically immersed yourself in it and just, I mean, all in, right?
100%.
Wow. Now, is there a school that you can go through for something like this, or is it all apprentice based?
It's well, the apprenticeship program is there's a multiple apprenticeship programs. So the one that I went through is called NEEP. It's a National Elevator Industry Education Program that's run through the IUEC, the International Elevator Constructors Union, or the International Union of Elevator Constructors. They have a book learning plus OJT on the job training program that will bring you from 0 to 4 years. You pass the mechanics exam, then you get to go out. You get blessed as a mechanic. Okay. There's other apprenticeship programs. For example, at Island Elevator, we utilize the CET program, which is the Certified Elevator Technician program, developed by an industry trade group called NAEC, the National Association of Elevator Contractors. So they developed this program. They put it out. This is, again, another 4-year book and learning combined with on-the-job training in order to be able to develop somebody from zero experience to being a competent, trusted, independently responsible elevator mechanic out in the field.
Wow.
So, yes, I did that for 4 years. Then I passed my mechanics exam and I rocked it over.
All right. And so do you guys install elevators too, or is it literally just maintenance and repairs?
We install elevators, and there's a multitude of elevators that we install. There's different ones for low rise as opposed to medium. We don't do any high rise out on Long Island. Everything's basically 20 stories or less. There is repair. So we've got existing installations where there's a problem and we need to go in there and pull equipment out. There's troubleshooting and service. So there's a minor problem. We go in there, we correct the issue, we service the elevator in order to prolong the life. And then when the elevator reaches the end of its life, after it's been installed, we offer modernization services. So it's basically, you have a 60-year-old elevator inside your building. You're not going to rebuild the building. You're not going to rebuild the shaft. So we go in there, we pull out either large majority of what the equipment is in there, or we pull it all out and put in new, modernized, code-compliant equipment in order to properly support the building for the next 30 years.
Wow, man.
And that also means that we also have inspection and testing. So all of these elevators, they're for passenger transport. They're people movers, like trains and planes. So there's got to be regular inspections and testing done as mandated by the code book. Those have to be done by people that are certified in a specific way. There's a lot of regulation. There's a lot of code. We're a code-driven industry. So every 3 years, there's a new version of the elevator code that's put out. It's usually inspired by either trade professionals, or maybe there was an accident, or maybe something in order to be able to elevate the level of safety for either the elevator installer, servicer, repairer, or the riding public. So as those code issues come in and then start to become adopted by the authority having jurisdiction, then we now have to go back to the customers that have existing elevators and ask them, are you ready to do this in order to bring it up to the next level of code compliance?
Wow. I had no idea that so much went into it. Okay. So you mentioned, in the event of an accident, sometimes a code might be changed. I imagine as an elevator mechanic, there's some risk involved where, things could get dangerous, right? Some trades like that as well. Have you had any close calls? I mean, I'm sure you take extensive measures for
Have
safety.
I had any close calls?
You personally, yeah.
So just to kind of start from the top, the elevator industry is wildly dangerous. People die in the elevator industry every year. And we're not just talking about installing the elevator and falling down 10 floors. That rarely happens. We see more fatalities in modernization and repair for existing equipment. Recently, there was elevator professionals that got killed right here in New York, probably maybe, I want to say maybe like 3 to 5 or just over the last 3 years or so. So a big portion of what we do is safety training, and that has to be done on a regular basis. We have these guys doing toolbox talks every week and quarterly trainings, and we bring in special consultants in order to be able to train them up to the most recent best practices so that they can make sure that they go out there and they come home. Because I tell everybody that works at Island Elevator, your job is not primarily to put the elevator back into service or to build the elevator. Your job primarily is to go home to your family at the end of the day. That's your job, because the elevator is going to get built and the elevator is going to get repaired and the elevator is going to go back into service. But if you don't show up tomorrow, it's going to fuck everything up.
Yeah.
Okay. So I need you to take care of yourself, take care of the riding public. We will get the equipment squared away. Just remain patient. As far as myself, I have had a series, and that's just for the fatality end of things, because you can just as easily end your career from an accident. It doesn't necessarily need to be a full-on, body bag.
Yeah.
You could put your hand in a spot. There's 1,000 moving parts, especially on top of the elevator, underneath the elevator. You can get your fingers crushed. You can blow out knees. You can lose limbs. Well, it didn't go down as a fatality, but guess what? There's no such thing as a one-armed elevator man. There's no such thing as a six-finger elevator woman. Yeah. You want to make sure that you're intact so that you can go out there and attack the equipment.
Yeah, it ain't as easy as Bruce Willis makes it out to be in Die Hard, right?
No, it is not.
Okay.
So as far as I am concerned, when I was out in the field, I had an incident that was local here. I went in to go fix an elevator. I touched I was working on it. The motor started making like a weird noise. So I turned around and I turned off the disconnect. Now, the disconnect, for those that don't know, is the electrical box that will kill all the power to the elevator. It's what they train you to do. They say, listen, if there's something wrong, just kill the power, kill the disconnect. And when you kill the disconnect, make sure that you don't put your entire body in front of the disconnect. So you got to put your body here so that you're going ahead and pulling down the arm. So if anything happens, it's a 1 in a million shot. So I should have played the lottery that day, because I pulled down that arm and the disconnect blew off of the wall like a fireball. Oof. And it gave me 2nd and 3rd degree burns right down the side of my face, my arm, my shoulder. I spent about 2 weeks in the burn unit. And when I did what all the doctors told me to do, I was able to recover. But because I had my glasses on, it protected my eyes. Because I had I had natural fiber clothing, I had a cotton shirt. Nothing got burned and melted to my skin. So yes, there was a fair to extreme level of pain in the recovery. And but the most important part is that I was able to go home to my family. And I only spent 2 weeks in a burn unit, ICU. I was able to spend 2 more weeks recovery at home. And then I went to work and I was right back at it. So that's where all of my safety training took that 1 in a million shot and made sure that I was able to go home eventually to my family. But this is the story that I tell everybody, is that you don't want your wife and your parents to get that phone call, right? I mean, I remember I was in the ICU. I'm on my back. These people were amazing. Like a whole team came in, and then they debriefed it, and then they turn off the lights, and they're using a blue light to see if there's anything in my eyes. And I got like people putting stuff in my legs and my arms and all of this stuff. But I remember that my father walked in and he's like, oh, your mother's on the way. I'm like, don't bring her in here. I don't want her to see me like this. I look like half a charcoal briquette. So it's not something that you want to put your family through, because when you get severely injured like that, or if you die on the job site, yes, you carry a certain burden, but your family carries it even more than you think. They're the ones that have to take care of you, replace your lost income, visit you in the hospital. It's not, it's, if it's avoidable, then what the fuck? Don't do it. Who cares? I have to tell everybody that works here, specifically out in the field, but when we're talking about a safety first mentality, it's got to start with leadership. Leadership can't be asking people to do things that they shouldn't be asking them to do. So we start leadership top down. And then out in the field, I try to explain to these technicians as much and as often, and you have to pound it into them, that what you think that you're doing by cutting a safety corner and saving me 15 minutes or an hour could end up costing me well more in the long run. Workers' comp, insurance rates, loss of having you here, the emotional toll. The team takes a heavy emotional toll because we build a very strong and tight team over here. So when somebody gets hurt, it doesn't, like, people are, they're down. It kills the entire thing. So when we went through COVID, we had our senior technician. He was here for 8 years. 3 weeks after COVID, he got COVID. 10 days later, he passed away. That was heavy. That was very heavy for the entire team. And I don't know that any of us are fully recovered from it. We just find a way to kind of power through. But when you build something and you build it the right way, then when something bad happens, it doesn't happen to that person. It happens to everybody, including your family.
Yeah. No, that's solid advice. And I hope my audience is going to heed that advice and listen to that very carefully, because it is incredibly important. So listen, oftentimes with high risk careers comes a bigger monetary benefit. And I know nothing about the elevator industry, right? So I'm curious, just from a range of pay when you first enter into the elevator industry as an apprentice compared to what you can possibly make, what the upside is when you're a master certified technician or whatever, or however you classify that person. What is the pay scale there that somebody could realistically expect?
Base pay scale is here at Island Elevator. Everybody that we hire comes in at minimum wage, $20 an hour. And after 3 months, you get health paid benefits and you get 401k, and you get 401k after a year. We have about 12 or 13 paid holidays right now. You get PTO. We pay for all of the education. You get support, all of those things. So we're talking about baseline $40,000 a year. Comparatively speaking, my wife went to school, graduated magna cum laude, or summa cum laude. She's going to kill me when she So she graduated summa cum laude from a prestigious college, John Jay College. She went on, did her master's degree, came out as a licensed mental health counselor, got her first job as a licensed mental health counselor, $40,000 a year.
Wow.
But now she's got 4 years college and then the master's degree. Because she's from New York, she didn't have to pay the full weight, but it was probably like an extra $25,000. Yeah. And all of that stuff has got to get paid back at some point. She's lucky if she, a licensed mental health counselor is lucky if they cap out $65,000 a year, benefits and so forth. And she has to pay into her benefits. Here at Island Elevator, we are trying to stay competitive with union compensation. So we pay the health benefits full. None of it comes out of the employee's paycheck. So what you get paid, aside from what you owe the government, stays in your pocket. Okay. So that's where you're starting from. Now, where you go from there, there's two different avenues when it comes to the elevator industry. You've got the merit shop or non-union shop, which is us. The better you are and the faster you progress, the faster we can compensate you. And then when you go to a union shop, they have scheduled raises based on your time in the industry. They tend to start a little bit higher, and obviously they tend to go a little higher, specifically here in New York, mostly because they're working on the high-rise buildings in Manhattan. Sure. We're not in Manhattan, so we're not able to command the same types of rates. So our guys are they're not as highly compensated as the union mechanics. And they all know that. I
Yeah.
tell them that. I don't try to hide any of that. I said, listen, you can drive into the city and make more money, or you can stay here and work for Island Elevator. So it's really, I support you no matter what you want to do. You know what I mean? You got a family to take care of. So as far as pay range goes, it's probably, you could probably go up to, I want to say, base pay $150,000 a year. You can range all the way up there. So there's lots of different tiers depending on your area of expertise, your seniority, what it is that you bring to the table, whether or not you can manage people, and that's all base pay. That's 40 hours a week plus that doesn't include overtime.
Sure.
So you could go a base pay $65,000, work yourself enough overtime, you can ramp yourself up to $80,000, $85,000 within 4 or 5 years. So there's an opportunity for people to make a living wage. It's more difficult here in New York, and I know that New York does command higher rates than some of the other places outside of New York. But again, it's all about Elon Musk, which I know that not a lot of people aren't big fans of his, my wife included.
I'm a big fan.
But
I love
what he does say is that your compensation is equal to the size of the problem that you can solve. The bigger the problem you solve, the more that you're going to get paid.
Yeah.
So as far as elevators are concerned, elevators are a bit of a niche. People don't really know what happens with the elevator, and a lot of the work that we do is either done through the roof or in a room in the basement or inside the shaft with the doors closed. People don't understand what's going on. So that keeps us in a position of relative safety as far as our competition is concerned. There's not people coming in off of the street and deciding to be an elevator technician. Aside from the fact that you're losing the education, you don't have the certifications and the licensing and the insurance and all of the things that go along with that. Most of our competition comes from people that go to other elevator companies, learn up their trade, and then start their own shop. Okay. So it ends up being a very small community when it comes to elevators. You end up knowing a lot of your people that you're competing against.
That's interesting. So are most people, is it fair to ask, I guess, are most people in the elevator industry, do they come from a lineage of other elevator mechanics? Like, or somebody in their family, has experience with it or something?
It used to be like that.
Okay.
But what happens is that over generations, because the elevator union is over 125 years old, and that's how long there's been organized labor associated with this particular trade. And the trade, that's another long story. I won't get into that. So because of that generational torch that's being passed from one another, as in everything else in life, but less so nowadays, it's not what you know, it's who you know. So you got into the elevator trade because your father was there or your uncle was there. I've got stories where guys were like, oh, I was a bartender, and this owner of the elevator company used to come in there, and I was talking to him about how I worked on cars, and he brought me in. Yeah. So you had to kind of know somebody. But since the advent of a nationally, federally, and state recognized apprenticeship program, there are hiring rules that need to be followed in order to go forward, in order to be able to. And what that's done, fortunately, is it's forced people to consider a more diverse workforce as in order to support their customers. So now we've got the tree had very few branches, but now it's got more, right? So now there are more people that are able to offer an opportunity into this trade to their sons, to their nephews, to their nieces, to their sisters, in order to bring them in and give them a shot. Before that, if you didn't know somebody that was in the elevator business, you weren't getting into the elevator business.
That's interesting. So is there any type of like program where, somebody would go into a school and inform kids, that like this industry actually exists? Because we were talking right before the podcast, before we hit the record button, we were talking a little bit about the similarities in our industry. And, that's one of those things that we talked about, is that like people just don't know. They don't think about it. They ride the elevators up and down just like they go to a restaurant and they eat the food that's served to them without thinking about what cooked it or what stored it, right? So and you talked earlier too about taking things for granted, right? And I want to draw this association because I do this often with the skilled trades. It's one of those what I call white noise industries, right? Where we utilize the services every day. I mean, you look out the window, you can't throw a rock without hitting something that's a result of the skilled trades, but we take it for granted every single day because it's all around us, right? When in actuality, like this is real world stuff, and these industries can be incredibly lucrative, incredibly rewarding. I mean, you're a good use case for that. You found gratification and satisfaction and something that you previously thought that you absolutely wouldn't. So I guess my question is, why not? Why don't kids know about this? Why can't we go into schools and tell them and recruit more people into the elevator industry?
It's not going to happen in the elevator industry. They have it for mechanical, electrical, and plumbing.
Right.
The reason why they have it for mechanical, electrical, and plumbing is that if we go in and we build a commercial building anywhere, say 5 stories or less, there are dozens of HVAC, tin knockers, plumbers, electricians. If you have 2 elevators in that building, you probably only have 2 elevator people. So as a percentage of the demographic of the skilled trades, it is super, super small. We're talking that maybe elevator technicians in the state of New York, which has one of the biggest elevator populations in the world, would probably be somewhere around 5,000 to 6,000 total elevator technicians, less than 10,000. Meanwhile, you could have thousands of electricians on one of these high-rise buildings. So there's more demand because there's a higher population for those more common trades. This is like a niche of a niche of a niche. So that's probably why they're not going to expend the type of resources that would be necessary in order to send somebody into a school or try to start up a specialized program through BOCES or some sort of trade school. It's just not going to happen. There's not enough need for it. The market is not large enough.
That makes sense. And I didn't think about it from that angle, but that makes a lot of sense. So let me ask you this. Are you experiencing a lot of the same skilled trade shortages that some of the other trades are experiencing? Like, are you still, even with such a small percentage needed, are you still having trouble finding people, or are you as an industry doing okay with that?
As an industry, I couldn't speak for the whole industry.
Okay.
I can only speak for Island Elevator and maybe some of the other elevator companies that I speak to. We have, and then you want to talk about an elevator, it's niche on that. And we don't go into the 5 boroughs. So we don't touch New York City elevators or buildings, different type of animal. So we're in an even smaller niche.
Okay.
So we have a market that we want to look to build out. We are not experiencing uncontrolled growth. So we're able to be disciplined in how we're bringing people onto the team, training them up. That being said, no, I personally am not experiencing that at all.
Good.
One of the benefits of having the social media presence that I'm starting to develop on LinkedIn, name drop, that people are inside the trade are attracted to some of the content that I'm putting out because we are such a small population. A lot of people aren't talking about elevators. I'm talking about elevators. They get attracted to it. They like some of the other ideas and philosophies that I share. I have people that call me all the time that want to work for Island Elevator. So I'm able to kind of stack resumes and say, yes, when we get to the point where we're ready to grow and bring you on, we want to be able to bring you on. So I'm not having that problem, but I know that some other people that have maybe less disciplined growth are experiencing that. And a lot of the ways that they're kind of working around it is they're doing acquisitions. So a larger elevator company, in order to be able to bring in some more skilled technicians, will acquire a smaller elevator company. And instead of having to hire these people, now you can acquire them. You acquire the service base that's necessary in order to support their payrolls, raise some pricing, and then now all of a sudden you're in a better position to be able to execute for your primary customer base.
Wow.
Does that answer your question?
It sure does. No, that's really, really insightful. And I'm glad I asked that question. That's really cool. So listen, that's going to transition me into asking you a little bit more about the business side of things, right? And how are you doing on time? I want to be respectful to you and your time. You doing
I
all
got
right?
the rest of the afternoon.
All right.
Actually, my time is limited by my battery capacity.
All right.
So I
Right on.
started at 100. I'm at 83%. I think that we can do this. So don't limit yourself on my behalf, because if
All
I
right.
get long-winded, which I tend to do on some questions, you can just edit it out.
No problem. No, this is great. I'm learning a lot, and I appreciate
Go
it.
for it.
Um,
Go bananas.
all right, good. So you were an elevator mechanic, and then one day you were just thrust into being the president of the company. You were the captain of the ship at that point, and had, in your words, basically paraphrase, you had no idea what you were doing, right?
I had no idea what I was doing.
From that standpoint. So talk to me a little bit about that transition. What was your first thought? I mean, after you processed, the death of your father and stuff like that, and you realized, hey, this is all on my shoulders now. What did that look like?
There was a lot of fear and anxiety and curiosity. So as I started to go through, I saw more things. It just created more anxiousness. There wasn't money where there was hopefully going to be money. There was no records to be able to identify or predict whether or not there was going to be any money coming in. There was there was so many issues that I can't even drill into each one, some of which may get me in some more trouble. And I don't want to do that. So the long story short is that I was drilled in, focused on trying to make this thing work, because I had no other option.
Okay.
I had an option. I could always walk away. I was a talented enough elevator person where I could get a job for any elevator company in the country doing whatever the heck it is that I wanted to. But I had people that I needed to take care of. So I needed to right the ship and drive the thing forward. So the first thing that I needed to do was a lot of exploring. And the more I found, the more I got nervous. So basically, the first couple of years was all about survival. I was just working all the time. I went from working a lot to working all the time. It's one thing that my father used to tell me, is that go to work every day, work hard, be diligent, stay focused, and one day, go to work every day for 8 hours, be hard, diligent, focused, and then one day you'll be the boss and you'll get to work 12 hours a day. So that's basically where I was at, where I just couldn't stop, because to stop meant that there was a possibility that we might die. And that I was not going to let that happen. I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees. So I went ahead and pushed this thing forward as best as I could. I had the support, and I am eternally grateful for the people that decided to stick around for Island Elevator, which was 100% of the employees decided to stick around to Island Elevator, and they helped me. And I wouldn't have been anywhere doing anything or even talking to you right now if it wasn't for them. So they were my life raft. They were this company's life raft and the guide to survival. So once we got through the survival period and we were able to right the ship, that's when I went and started to go back to the schooling. So I did the Goldman Sachs program in order to be able to learn the basics. After that, all it did was pique more curiosity into some of the skills that I needed to learn in order to be more effective at the job that I was supposed to be doing, because they were here for me. My people were here for me. Our people were here for me. I needed to be there for them. I needed to get better at the job that they needed me to do. So now I'm basically hitting books and YouTube and following thought leaders in order to be able to gain some of the skills that I need in order to drive the company forward. I need leadership skills. I need people to be able to be confident in me, and I need to be able to curate multiple ideas and crowdsource solutions. I need to learn accounting. I needed to learn recently, probably within the last 2 years, I've been putting a lot of focus and energy into learning sales philosophy and techniques and marketing philosophy and messaging. And it's just, there's so many different things that there are out there to get better at. And each day I'm trying to get better, because if you're not getting better, then you're getting worse. At least that's how I look at things. If you're not trying to push your company into the future, then somebody behind you, some younger, hungrier Chris Gutkes, is pushing his company past you. And guess what? He's not going to stop. It doesn't matter. Or she's not going to stop. It doesn't matter. You got to keep moving forward, because that's exactly what the rest of the world is doing. Except at this point, they're just doing it faster. So if you're not willing to evolve and stress and give yourself a little bit of a stress test and change yourself on a regular basis, then you're going to be left trying to explain to everybody what happened. And that's not going to happen to me.
I love that, man. I think that's a really great philosophy. You know, it's an old school philosophy, one that I think is often forgot these days. You know, and I'm cut from very much of the same cloth, right? And one of the things I like to say is, you know, I've been told before that I bite off more than I can chew, and my argument is always, well, how the fuck else am I supposed to know how much I can chew? You know, and that's really what it boils down to for me, right? And I think that's a common trait that may be shared amongst entrepreneurs or people that were thrust into an entrepreneurial role. You know, once you take those reins, you realize that, you know, it's all on you. The success and the failure is all dependent on, you know, how you view the situation. And if you view the situation that there is no failure, there's only learning experiences, and it's all up to you to keep moving forward and adjust based on what you learn, you know, then it's hard not to adopt that mindset. So I'm curious, at the very beginning of the show, you were talking about some of the fundamentals that you enjoyed as an elevator mechanic, and one of them you said is problem solving. So, as we all know, when you jump into business ownership, you know, in a leadership style role, basically your entire life becomes problem solving. I mean, that, you know, from the time that you wake up to the time you go to bed, I mean, that is, you know, you're making decision after decision after decision to solve problems. And so I'm wondering what other skills you might have learned as a mechanic that you, looking back, may have been transferable to business ownership.
Wow, that's a really good question, because sometimes I look back and I say, I didn't know anything and I didn't learn anything. I learned how to deal with, and that's the biggest thing, especially when we bring technicians in out of the field or up from a technician level into a leadership or supervisor position. The biggest hurdle that I had to overcome, that they had to overcome, is the fact that you've gone from managing equipment to now managing people that manage the equipment. So it's a completely different experience. We're talking about trying to lower the stress levels, give them confidence. I don't have to do any of that shit when it comes to an elevator. It's very binary thinking. So I'm either getting the problem solved or I am not. This is making the elevator work better, or it's making it work worse, or it's not making it do anything at all. So trying to shake that out, there's been a lot of unlearning from when I was out in the field, as opposed to evolution. The only thing that I would say that I carry forward are my personality traits and my drive and my focus and my philosophies and my convictions. Now, all of that stuff is transferable. So that's how I kind of relate to things, because a lot of people tend to kind of like associate skill sets with success, when I think that it's actually mindset for success, not skill set. Skills can be taught. So my same mindset of not continuing to be hungry to learn more, to be better every single day, that's what I carried forward in order to be able to be driven and not accept the loss. That's what I carried forward in order to be able to understand that problems are there to be solved, not to be mourned. That's what I carried forward. So it's more of a mindset than actually a skill set thing that I feel helped me to be marginally successful at what I do on a regular basis. And humility, right? Yes. So humility, like the elevator industry, the skills trades, they will humble you. You can be doing this for 10 years and 15 years and you know everything. You're so fucking smart. And then you go up against that one thing that one day and you apply that fix that worked 10 times before, and then it doesn't work. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I was a genius 10 minutes ago. Now I'm the biggest idiot in the world. So the being humble in this leadership position is something that kind of helps me out also, because I cannot expectations have to be reasonable, and entitlements are not granted, and I need to be focused on looking forward, not constantly looking backward and trying to congratulate myself on something that I accomplished a while ago, because things are changing as I'm moving. I am moving. Like right now, it may not look like I'm moving, but in my head, I'm like a shark. If I stop swimming, I'll die.
I love that, man. That's fantastic. And what a great answer to that question too, by the way, because that's a lot of, what I actually go into in my book is not so much the skill set that you develop. I touch on it, right? With the skill set that you develop by working with your hands, but it is the mindset, right? It is the work ethic. It is the tenacity. It is the problem solving. It is all those things that you mentioned that I consider to be the fundamentals of success. And so, which leads me into my last question for you. So, I say success, and I think that one of the issues that we see, especially in high schools with kids going to college, is that a lot of educators, counselors, parents, we all want success for the next generation. We all want success for young people. Just a lot of us are very closed off to what that means, right? We're working from a singular definition of what success looks like. It's, hey, go to college, get good grades, get the degree, get the house with the white picket fence, the couple of dogs, couple of kids, and that's success. But this is 2022, man, and people define success differently. Everybody defines success differently. For one person, it's travel. For one person, it's exactly that. For another person, it's literally working with their hands until the day that they die. I mean, there's so many different types of success. So my question for you is, how do you, Chris, define success, and how is what you're doing now helping you to achieve that?
Success, to kind of touch on what you were talking about, success is a very personal thing. Whatever it is that you want, and really it comes down to even like a real simple version. Are you happy? Because I've seen people that are by objective measures successful, but they're fucking miserable. So I don't want to be that person. I want to be able to reach a level of peace and uniformity. What is it? I forget what I think it was Buddha or it was Gandhi or something like that. And they said that you are at peace when your thoughts and your words and your actions are in unity. So I would say that success I would define success close to that. And my definition of success is to be able to help other people's achieve their definition of success. So I live a life of service. This is what I do. This is what makes me happy. I want to be remembered as somebody that helped them get to the point. So like the way that I talk to people, I always talk about goal setting, right? So you can't get anywhere if you don't actually pick a point that you want to go to. So whenever anybody comes into Island Elevator, one of the first questions that we ask them are, what are your goals? What are your career goals? What are your life goals? Right away, we can find out whether or not this person is going to be a good fit for the culture and whether or not Island Elevator is going to be able to adequately support this person. So by understanding their goals, we can now work with them a little bit better, and it gives us insight to where they're going. But I tell them, I said, listen, you have to have a goal. You are the boat. Island Elevator is the wind, right? We can't get you to where you're going. You have to put up the mainsail, pick a direction and go. We're going to help support you to get there, but you are the one who has to do this. If somebody can provide an answer to that question, then I think that they're going to be a pretty good fit. So when I talk about goals, and I talk about goals with a lot of other people, some people I coach. Some people I coach and they didn't actually ask me to coach them. So I just kind of give them my 2 cents. That's partly my problem. I'm a little bit of a chatterbox, and I'm trying to exercise a higher level of self-awareness. But when I talk about my goals, especially life goals, the goal always starts for me at the end, and I work my way backwards. So for me, at the end, my ending is the same as your ending, is the same as all your audience's ending. We're all going to die at some point. So if we start there and we say, okay, given this this fact that we cannot move around, how do we want that to look? And how I want it to look is I want people to be able to say nice things about me to my wife at my funeral. because I'm sorry, honey, you're going to outlive me. So, and I want them to share stories about how I positively impacted their life, or I helped them and they were able to take what we learned. Maybe I taught them, or maybe we learned it together. They were able to take that outside to their personal life and make their personal life better, or make their marriage better, or make their parenting style better. So that it's not about necessarily professional goals. It's about connectivity and about helping somebody else achieve what their level of happiness is, because that's what the basic, and then I go backwards. And that's what the basic premise of Island Elevator is, a people first company, is that we're very people centric, is that we want to be able to be there for you, and so that you can be there for the ones that you want to be there for. And I always tell people that Island Elevator it's not really a company so much as it is a philosophy, a concept. And it wouldn't matter to us if we were providing elevator services or selling hot dogs or, doing insurance claims. We would do it the same exact way. So we want to be able to understand where we're going and then kind of fill in the steps on how to get there. That's kind of how I approach problem solving, life in general, goal setting. And I think that having that point in the horizon has probably stopped me from, staying in bed and throwing the covers over my head and just not coming to work, So and every entrepreneur, and I never really thought of myself as an entrepreneur. It's interesting that you say that, because I used to tell my my CEO group, I'm part of Vistage, oh, you are?
Yeah.
Fantastic. So I've got my Vistage chair would be like, oh, entrepreneur. I'm like, listen, I don't really see myself as an entrepreneur. I see myself as an operator, right?
Yeah.
Give me a task and I will crush it. Give me the room and the resources, and I will make sure that nobody regrets putting me in charge. Give me the people and we will all do this together. So what I've start to, as I understand the entrepreneurial mindset, what I also am seeing is that I'm actually growing into becoming an entrepreneur. It's not natural to me. And some people, it is like boom, 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 and I'm like super envious that when I got pushed into this thing and it was scary, but the fact that I am so hard-headed and I won't quit is why we're still alive today, right?
Yeah.
But when I see people that are in a good, comfortable position in a supportive company, and they decide to leave and walk to the edge of that professional cliff and jump off into entrepreneurship, I think they're crazy. So and I'm so like respectful and humbled to listen to true entrepreneur, and you can tell who they are right away because they think that everything is possible. And I'm super respectful of that. And just like I wouldn't want to be confused with somebody who is a true veteran, I wouldn't want to be confused with somebody that is a true blue entrepreneur, because they are out there, they exist, they're real, and they are enviable people, and they have lots to teach us, but they are not operators. So when I'm able to be an operator and then kind of touch into that entrepreneurial world, it adds a different layer of fulfillment for me.
Yeah. And the next step in the process, for sure. I love that too, by the way, starting with your goals, right? We call that beginning with the end in mind. And it's unbelievably valuable for anybody out there listening. And it's a really good way to not only stay focused on what it is you're trying to accomplish, but also recheck yourself every once in a while, right? Because a lot of times that goal, that definition of success, it changes. You would have asked me when I was 15 years old what my definition of success was, it would be the greatest street racer of all time. That changed. That changed real quick. You know what I mean? So really, really great advice, Chris. And I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. Tell me, where can people find you? Do you want people to find you? Where can they find you?
People can find me if you look for me.
All right.
My name is in the comments. If you give a crap enough, you'll figure out how to get to me. If you don't, that's okay. Thank you for giving me whatever time that you've given us today. I really appreciate talking to you, Josh. I appreciate talking to everybody and anybody, because I feel like you can learn so much just by having that conversation, building that empathy, giving you a different perspective. There's so much out there to learn, and I really love doing it. I love doing this stuff.
Awesome. Well, Likewise, Chris, and thanks again for coming on the show and sharing your insight, my friend.
Thank you.